tonight, a European dream for Scotland.
We're going to Germany!
With our place at Euro 2024 secured, our men's football squad and the Tartan Army start planning for Germany.
I'm not sure Germany is ready for 5 million Scottish people to turn up, but it seems like that. It seems like everybody you speak to says that they're going to be in Germany next summer.
It marks a huge turnaround in the fortunes of our national team.
We're in Lille with the Scotland squad as they get set for tomorrow night's friendly with France, with all the reaction to their Euro qualification.
Also making the headlines, a big reception for Nicola Sturgeon at the SNP conference. The former First Minister backs Humza Yousaf's new plans for IndyRef 2.
And Glasgow's addiction recovery community say opening the UK's first consumption room is a crucial step towards ending the war on drugs.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm Emma Cameron in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Scotland are through to Euro 2024. The Scotland squad and the Tartan Army are celebrating and already making plans to head to Germany for next year's tournament. Head coach Steve Clarke joked he isn't sure Germany is ready for 5 million Scots to turn up, but will certainly take a big crowd.
We're through thanks to a Spanish victory over Norway last night. Our previous 5 wins from 6 group games are enough to cement a place with 2 games remaining. It marks a continuing revival in Scotland's international football performance. We'll hear from our reporter Ronnie Charters shortly. He's with Scotland ahead of tomorrow's friendly against France. But first, here's Jamie Borthwick.
We're going to Germany!
There's just one destination on the mind of the Tartan Army for next summer. And even the Scotland squad were partying with the fans last night after booking their place at the Euros.
I'm not sure Germany is ready for 5 million Scottish people to turn up, but it seems like that. It seems like everybody you speak to says that they're going to be in Germany next summer. I'm sure it won't be 5 million, but we'll certainly take a big crowd. Obviously, we want to go there. We want to be successful in the tournament. What is success for Scotland is probably to be the first Scottish national team to come out of a group stage at a major competition.
Clark's done a fantastic job. Players have really played for him. I'm so proud.
It's a great achievement and not something that we do very often. So
it's good for the feeling of the country.
To come through all that and then eventually qualify is just amazing.
The tournament kicks off on the 14th of June next summer and runs until the final in Berlin on the 14th of July. There are 10 host cities across Germany, with Scotland playing in 3 different stadiums during the group stages. Fans eager to book up for the games will discover where and when Steve Clarke's men will be in action when the draw takes place in Hamburg on Saturday, the 2nd of December.
We've got a right good chance of being very competitive and I think hopefully building on from where we left at the last Euros with the one point. Hope we can build on that, and if the draw's good to us, then we'll naturally be aiming to try and qualify.
Last time Scotland qualified in the most dramatic of circumstances, with fans locked out due to COVID. This time, with 2 whole games to spare, the Euros party planning is already well underway. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Well, Scotland play France tomorrow night in a friendly. It'll be the first chance to see the side in action since qualification. Our sport reporter Ronnie Charters is in Lille for us.
Well, all roads now lead to Germany for Steve Clarke and his players. But before that, Scotland have taken a detour here to the very sunny French city of Lille as we get set for a glamour friendly against France tomorrow night. A match that normally would be dominating the headlines considering the level of opposition. But, of course, after the heroics of the Dark Blues qualifying for another major tournament, that is all anyone is speaking about. For the Tartan Army and the squad, the countdown is now well and truly on. Fans will be booking flights, they'll be getting in their annual leave, and for the players and manager Steve Clarke, their preparations will also kick up a gear as we get set for the tournament next summer. But that's all much further down the line. Here in Lille at the moment, thousands of Scotland fans have travelled and they are in a party mood. Wherever we go, the Tartan Army is always seen as to be one of the best in terms of supporting their teams, both at home and away in world football. But now it seems that bit more special. Thousands have come here, the team riding a crest of a wave and once again qualifying for another major tournament. Steve Clarke has built something special with these players. He's built a bond with the fans and also built a real belief within everyone in the country that Scotland can reach new heights. It may all start in the stadium behind me in Lille as we take on France tomorrow night, but then the countdown really begins as next June we step out on Euro 2024.
Ronnie Charters there. Well, let's take a look at other news tonight. And conditions for millions of people trapped in Gaza are worsening as supplies of food, water, fuel and medicine dwindle further. The United Nations is warning the area is being strangled.
The First Minister's in-laws are still trapped, and tonight STV News has spoken to another Scot with relatives in Gaza. She says she feels helpless. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
The border between Gaza and Egypt, despite earlier reports of a ceasefire, it remains closed, with no way out for those trying to flee and no way for aid to get in. With the United Nations warning of an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, in the Commons earlier, a minute's silence was observed for the lives lost and for all those affected by the conflict. The Prime Minister condemned the actions of Hamas and confirmed at least 6 British citizens are among the dead. They include Scot Bernard Cowan. A further 10 are missing.
Mr. Speaker, the families of some of the missing are in the public gallery today. We call for the immediate release of all hostages. And I say to them, we stand with you, we stand with Israel.
The Labour leader called for humanitarian corridors to be opened to allow the supply of food, water and electricity to Gaza.
Many in this House will have heard devastating stories from people who have lost friends and family, people deeply worried about the future of those they know in Israel or Palestine, including the First Minister of Scotland, who I spoke to at the weekend. We stand with all of them.
History will judge us on our response, not just to these abhorrent attacks, but to the humanitarian crisis which is undoubtedly unfolding in Gaza. Let us not be on the wrong side of history.
Speaking earlier at his party's conference, the First Minister confirmed his wife's parents remain trapped in Gaza. Wael Shoish spoke at Saturday's rally in Glasgow, where thousands gathered to show their solidarity with the people of Palestine. His wife's extended family in southeast Gaza is sheltering in a school. Contact is now reduced to 1 text message a day.
I only surviving on the hope of that message that's getting to me every day from my brother or my nephew, just to say they have, made another night, that they are okay, they are still alive.
People who are being massacred today have got nothing to do with Hamas and what Hamas has done. Israel is not allowing water in, is not allowing food in, is not allowing any humanitarian aid in. No medicine, no food, no water. What are they expecting to do? Are they expecting to starve people?
The UK government has announced it's increasing aid for the Palestinian people by £10 million. Whether this will reach those caught up in this deepening crisis now depends on negotiations. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Nicola Sturgeon is backing the SNP's decision to ditch her plans to make the next general election a de facto referendum on independence. At the SNP conference in Aberdeen, the former First Minister got a very warm welcome, being mobbed by supporters and the media.
As the conference continues, Scotland's newest MP, Labour's Michael Shanks, took his seat in the House of Commons for the first time. Here's our political editor, Colin Mackay.
It's been all about the arrivals. Scotland's newest Labour MP at Westminster.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
And at SNP conference in Aberdeen, the focus was very much on former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon.
Are you disappointed the party ditched your de facto referendum yesterday?
Look, one of the reasons I took the decision to step down was that I believed I'd given it my all on moving the country to independence, but that I had taken it as far as I could. I think in those circumstances it was right, in fact that was my objective, that the party took the time to consider the way forward it wanted to adopt. It did that yesterday, it did that unanimously as far as I can see yesterday, and that position has my full unequivocal support.
Hamza Yousaf will be the centre of attention tomorrow with his first leader's speech to the conference, but today all eyes were on his predecessor.
She's going to get a lot of love, quite rightly, and adulation. Members will be really excited to see her.
You know that I think Hamza's doing a fantastic job as leader of the party and as First Minister, and I don't think there's any doubt from what I've seen about who's in charge of this conference.
In the hall there was further adulation.
Can I ask you to make your voices heard in your appreciation for Nicola Sturgeon, MSP.
And on the day the new MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West took his seat in the Commons, there was some self-reflection in the SNP.
And if you think about Rutherglen, yes, we've lost a by-election after 16 years in government. Labour lost 5 by-elections in government. The Tories lost 11 elections in government. We've been 16 years in government. But none of that, or any of the other challenges, has been able to come close to breaking our unshakable belief that Scotland is best governed by the people who live here.
But those are the people who had their say in the by-election and will have it again at the general election.
Well, Colin is at the SNP conference. So, Colin, what's the mood?
Well, it's a bit downbeat after that drubbing in Rutherglen, but SNP members seem slightly less bothered about the defection of Lisa Cameron in East Kilbride to the Conservatives. But looking around, this is probably the smallest SNP conference I've seen for about a decade. But they spent a long time discussing their independence strategy, ditching Nicola Sturgeon's idea of making the next general election a de facto referendum. But if they do get a majority of Scottish MPs at the next general election, they will attempt to use that as a mandate to demand negotiations with the UK government for another independence referendum. Now, Nicola Sturgeon had hoped that IndyRef 2 would be taking place on Thursday this week. Spoiler alert, it's not. And judging by this conference, I think the SNP are some way away from another independence referendum.
All right, Colin, thanks very much for that. Now, Scotland's schools are facing the prospect of more strike action after support staff who are members of Unison voted to reject the latest pay offer. The union says it will stage a rolling programme of action from Shetland to Stranraer. The dispute involves school support workers, including janitors, cleaners and classroom assistants. Almost 90% of those voting in the ballot voted against the deal. Researchers at the University of Edinburgh believe they could be a step closer to determining some of the main causes of Parkinson's. The disease is the fastest growing neurological condition in the world and affects almost 13,000 people in Scotland.
Parkinson's UK is now funding 2 projects which use cutting-edge technology to understand how brain cell changes may lead to the condition, as Vanessa Kennedy reports.
David was 46 when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's 7 years ago. His symptoms started with a tremor but got progressively worse, and now he relies on taking medicine multiple times a day.
Changes your life completely. I get very slow if I miss tablets or the tablets are wearing off. And it's made it more difficult to drive.
David is one of 13,000 people in Scotland living with Parkinson's disease. There are more than 40 different symptoms, and as the condition progresses, those symptoms can get worse. Now, 2 research projects at Edinburgh University have received funding to look into how changes in brain cells may lead to the condition developing.
We found a gene that no one has ever studied before. We're looking at a gene that has a potentially protective effect rather than something that's damaging or something that's causing a disease. And so that gives us a lot of opportunities for developing therapeutics and trying to understand what's going to help people rather than what's just causing damage.
The other project uses live imaging technology to examine how a key protein behaves when it's exposed to viruses and toxins. The aim is to make it much easier to test new Parkinson's medicines.
While the work being done here is at an early stage, it's hoped it could open up brand new treatments for Parkinson's, which is the fastest growing neurological condition in the world. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News Edinburgh.
Other stories in the West now, and the search for a missing woman in Glasgow's River Kelvin has entered its 6th day. Emergency crews were called to the West End last Wednesday amid reports of 2 people in the water. A man was rescued while police inquiries to trace the second person, a 59-year-old woman, are ongoing. Members of Glasgow's addiction recovery community say opening the UK's first consumption room is a crucial step towards ending the war on drugs and could help signpost people towards local support groups. The initiative was given a go-ahead in the east end of the city last month and will allow people to take illegal substances under medical supervision without risking criminal action. Caitlin Hutchison reports.
Good morning, how are you?
This weekly recovery group is a lifeline for Barry. Without it, he's not sure where he'd be.
I think there's a good possibility I'd be back in prison. I'd be dead.
When he first came to the cafe here, open to anyone who wants support, he was at the start of his recovery journey, not long after getting out of prison.
I don't know if you've ever been up Berlin, right, but the gate's there and there's a shop there. I didn't even get to the shop without buying a bottle of Buckfast, and I got into drugs again, I got into drink again. A couple of weeks later I was worse than ever, ended up in hospital. So eventually started coming to recovery cafes. I'm seeing that people are getting clean off they're not just getting clean off street drugs, you understand, they're getting clean off methadone. That seems like an impossibility, but people are doing it.
And he did it too, coming up for a year clean now, but it's not been an easy road.
I got to about the 6-month mark and my mental health went. They took us to the doctors and all that. Any support you need in here, right, you'll get it.
Alison, who struggled with addiction most of her adult life, was one of the volunteers there for Barry.
2 cheese and ham.
Now they work together.
I just love helping others the way I was helped. Been sitting in a homeless unit through my own fault, having that lost and lonely feeling. They know that we've been with there and give them a bit of hope.
All volunteers here are naloxone trained, the drug used to reverse opioid overdoses. And those skills are being passed on to the wider community, like these students from Glasgow Kelvin College.
I was really surprised at how easy it is to actually be able to save someone's life, and the fact that I've got the opportunity to do that is actually quite like a privilege.
While this work is ongoing and will continue as part of Scotland's drugs and alcohol strategy, it's hoped the UK's first drug consumption room will open just 2 miles down the road next summer. Now, ministers say they know it's not a silver bullet, but they're confident it will help save lives.
And that's something that resonates with the community here.
Everybody that's in that life has probably done it somewhere they shouldn't. Do you know what I mean? In their ma's toilet or something like that. It's a really chaotic life, so I think it could be a really good thing. There can be wee cards in that. You can say to them, look, take these, and it might plant a seed.
There'd maybe even be chances for some of us volunteers to be able to go down and sit and speak to them. I really believe it's a good thing, I really do. What else if we do, just let them die in the streets?
While Scotland remains the UK's drug death capital, those on the front line are working harder than ever to bring those numbers down. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News, Glasgow.
Well, Raman has been dusting down his lederhosen and is here with more on Scotland qualifying for the summer Euros.
I don't think we can talk about it enough, can we? Good evening. Steve Clarke says Scotland will head into next summer's European Championship with their heads held high after qualifying from their group. The team is now focusing on tomorrow night's friendly against France. More now from Ronnie in Lille.
Yes, well, you join us here now inside the stadium in Lille, where Scotland will take on France tomorrow night. The French players just getting put through their paces behind me. But it's all about Scotland and it's all about Steve Clarke and his players. What a whirlwind few days it has been, from the deflation of the defeat in Spain to the elation last night of qualifying for Euro 2024. For Steve Clarke and his players, it's straight back down to business, back training at Lesser Hampden this morning before travelling here to France. And there have been a few changes to the squad since our match in Seville. 19-year-old Max Johnson, former Motherwell player, gets his first call-up after captain Andy Robertson and Aaron Hickey withdrew from the squad, so we're expecting a few changes from Steve Clarke for this match tomorrow night. Le Blues versus the Dark Blues here in Lille, and for the Scotland manager, it is all about continuing the feel-good factor.
We have to play as well as we can tomorrow. We know it's a tough task, it's a big ask against a top team. I'm not sure how many changes the French will make, whether they go with a strong team or not, but whichever 11 they start on the pitch will be a big test for us, so we have to be ready for that. Momentum we can build. I would say the momentum we're looking to get is to pick up in the competitive matches.
Jack, how do you try and keep Kylian Mbappe quiet tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll keep that in-house, but from a personal point of view, obviously I've played against him before, had that experience. He's one of a number of top players that France have got within their squad, so it'll be a great test for ourselves.
So it's fair to say this match against France will certainly give Scotland some very good competition on the pitch. Kylian Mbappe and his fellow French players will certainly provide the stiffest of tests for Steve Clarke and his players. But that's what the head coach wanted. He wanted to be playing against the highest opposition at the very top level. And that's what they have tomorrow night as all eyes now get set on Euro 2024.
Well, for the first time, Scotland have qualified for a major championship with 2 games to spare. Chris Harvey now looks back on how Steve Clarke's side booked their place to Euro 2024.
Having ended the drought of major tournaments for Scotland at Euro 2020, Steve Clarke was primed and ready to make sure this was no flash in the pan. A squad hungry to right the wrongs, having narrowly missed out on the World Cup in Qatar.
I think we've improved a lot from when I first came into now. The difficult bit now is the next improvements are very difficult to make. I don't want to go to Germany 2024 and not go 2026.
And the campaign got off to a flyer. John McGinn and Scott McTominay scoring in a 3-0 win, a performance and result that would set the tone for a remarkable campaign ahead. Our next test is when former world champion Spain rocked up in Mount Florida in match day 2. But they were quickly sent packing in what can only be described as one of the greatest displays by the Dark Blues Hampden has ever seen. A 2-0 win over the Spaniards, again McTominay the star, scoring both.
I think tonight was a chance to put our mark in the group. We want to be competitive against the top team. And that's what we did tonight.
And the big results just kept on coming, this time on the road. Ullevål Stadium in Oslo, the next stop on a campaign that was turning into a dream.
Yeah, delighted to score such a meaningful goal, and a goal that means a lot to us going forward, and a massive step for us.
Then came the rain, a sodden night at Hampden as we welcomed Georgia in a game that will live long in the memory. Suspended for an hour and a half, the match finishing just before midnight, but most importantly, it finished with a Scotland win. A 2-0 scoreline meant the Scots had won their first 4 qualifying matches in a group for the first time ever, and were now in touching distance of Germany.
Apart from the birth of my 3 children, I think the longest day of my life. All the volunteers that got the brushes and the brooms and everything to get the water off the pitch, you got to say thank you to, because eventually we've come out with another massive 3 points.
From the pouring rain of Glasgow to the scorching heat of the Mediterranean, as the Cypriot city of Larnaca was the next stop on the road to Germany. But this Scotland team know how to deliver when the heat is on. A comfortable 3-0 win made it 5 out of 5 in the group, and the Euros were in sight. Despite defeating Spain in our next match, the Spaniards then secured our place in Germany 3 days later. Norway had to win. They didn't. And Scotland were there. A qualification campaign that will be remembered for a very long time. A group of players led by Steve Clarke began dreaming of Deutschland and who have now delivered. Germany 2024. Here we come.
That sounds good, doesn't it? Now, new Rangers manager Philippe Clement says he turned down more lucrative offers from other clubs in favour of a move to Ibrox. Clement, seen here arriving at the club's training centre in Auchenhowie this morning, has signed a 3.5-year deal. His first match in charge is against Hibernian at Ibrox on Saturday.
I knew of Philippe, and listen, it's a tough job, to come to get Rangers, you know, up to a level that the Rangers fans expect. You can get managers coming in and resurrecting the situation, but it's a tough job for anybody. And if the recruitment is not right, then it makes it even more difficult.
And we'll be speaking to Philippe Clement tomorrow. That, folks, is all your sport tonight.
All right, thanks very much, Rahman. OK, let's see how the weather's looking for the next few days. Here's Philip with the forecast.
It's looking like a chilly one. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Well, this week is a week of two halves. Monday and Tuesday remaining relatively fine, dry and settled for most. Come Wednesday, though, we see our second named storm of the season. Storm Babette will move through, bringing with it strong winds and heavy rainfall. We will be keeping an eye on that over the next few days. The Met Office have already issued several yellow weather warnings. You can find out more information on the STV News website and app. Back to just now, and as we head through the rest of this evening and overnight, there's very little change from what we've seen through the course of the day. To begin with, still one or two showers just feeding in across the very far west. Away from that, though, a largely dry night to come. Plenty of clear skies, so some rural spots could see a touch of frost as temperatures get down to -1 or -2 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead to tomorrow morning, first thing, a touch of frost where we've had those clear skies overnight. For many of us, a chilly but a fine, dry and bright start to the day. Later on in the morning, we start to see this cloud building in from the south and the southwest. So it does mean any of the sunshine will be turning a little bit hazier. And also along with that cloud, we will see the winds slightly picking up strength. Temperature-wise, tomorrow reaching highs of 11 or 12 degrees Celsius, similar to today. So feeling quite cool out and about. Come Wednesday, we've got heavy rainfall moving up the western side of the country. A tightening of the isobars means we'll see some strong winds with highs of around 11 or 12 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, that's all from us for tonight. But if you want to start brushing up on your language skills ahead of the Euros next year, Dudelsack, Kellyanne, is German for bagpipes.
Dudelsack. I am just scribbling that down, Emma, scribbling it down.
You do that. From all of us here, bye-bye.
Gute Nacht.